My brothers and sisters, all of us face moments when our minds suddenly feel heavy, our thoughts become dark, and our hearts begin to sink. You might be sitting quietly when a disturbing thought appears out of nowhere, or praying when a negative idea suddenly pops into your mind, and you begin to wonder, why am I thinking this? What is happening to me? Let me reassure you today, you are not your thoughts. You are not the whispers that enter your mind. These are attacks from Shaytan, and the Almighty has already warned us about this enemy. But here is the beautiful part. The one who warns you is the same one who protects you. Today, I want to share powerful lessons that will help you defeat toxic thoughts, silence negative whispers, and protect your mind through the light and guidance of the Almighty. 1. Shaitan attacks your mind because he cannot touch a heart protected by the Almighty. Shaitan cannot directly enter your heart, especially when your heart is connected to the Almighty. So he looks for another doorway, and that doorway is your mind. He knows he cannot control a heart filled with faith, hope, and remembrance, so he tries to disturb you in the place where thoughts move the fastest. He pushes worries, doubts, fears, and uncomfortable images into your mind to weaken your peace and confuse your focus. But understand this very clearly. He is doing this not because you are weak, but because he is powerless. When he sees your heart turning towards the Almighty, he becomes desperate. And desperation makes him whisper even more. He starts with small thoughts, tiny worries that make you uncomfortable. When you ignore them, he tries to push bigger ones. He wants you to question your worth, your future, your intentions, and your faith. He wants you to think something is wrong with you so he can make you panic. But none of these whispers mean there is something wrong with you. They simply mean you have a heart he cannot reach. A sealed door will always be knocked on. It does not mean it will be opened. That is exactly what Shaitan does. He knocks, but he does not enter. When your heart is connected to the Almighty, the whispers appear, but they never settle. They may disturb you for a moment, but they fade just as quickly. They may pass through your mind, but they cannot root themselves in your heart. The Almighty protects your inner core, even when your mind feels shaken on the surface. That is why you may feel uneasy, but deep down, you still know right from wrong. You still know what is pure and what is not. You still know what brings peace and what brings harm. That clarity inside you is the Almighty safeguarding your heart. Think of it like a passing cloud. Shaitan's whispers may block the sunlight for a moment, but they cannot stop the sun from shining. The cloud moves, but the light remains. In the same way, the whispers can move through your mind, but your heart stays illuminated and protected. The Almighty places a light inside those who turn to Him, and no whisper can switch off that light. So remind yourself, these thoughts are not you. They do not define you. They are not a sign of weak faith. They are nothing more than passing whispers from an enemy who is frustrated because he cannot reach your heart. And when the Almighty protects you, nothing can overpower you. The whisper may come, but it will always pass. The moment your heart remembers the Almighty, the whisper loses all its strength. When the Almighty protects your heart, no whisper can break you, no doubt can shake you, and no fear can control you. You are stronger than you think, because you are protected more than you realize. 2. Negative thoughts do not mean you have weak faith. They mean you truly care. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about negative thoughts is believing that these thoughts reflect who they are. Many people panic when a strange, disturbing, or unwanted idea suddenly enters their mind. They think, why did I think that? Does this mean something is wrong with my faith? Am I becoming a bad person? And that fear becomes even stronger because the thought was something they would never intentionally think about. But my brothers and sisters, please understand this. A thought that disturbs you is not coming from your heart. It is coming from Shaitan. And the very fact that you feel uncomfortable or guilty shows your heart is alive, healthy, and connected to the Almighty. If your heart was truly weak, you would not care. You would not feel bothered. You would not feel upset. You would not try to push the thought away. The discomfort you feel is actually a sign that your faith is working exactly as it should. Think about it. If you accidentally touched a hot surface, your reaction would be instant. You would pull your hand away because your nerves are functioning in the same way. When a negative or sinful thought pops into your mind and you immediately feel fear, sadness, or discomfort, that is your spiritual nerve system reacting. It means your heart recognizes the whisper and rejects it. This is not a sign of weakness. This is a sign of sensitivity, awareness, and sincerity. Shaytan tries to convince you that the thought is your own. He wants you to blame yourself. He wants you to feel ashamed, because if you blame yourself, you become discouraged, and discouraged people give up easily. He knows he cannot enter your heart, so he tries to convince you that your mind is broken. But he is lying. Your mind is not broken. Your heart is simply protecting itself. Even during the time of the Prophet, some companions experienced thoughts so terrible that they were too ashamed to even speak about them. They thought they were losing themselves. But when they explained how frightened and disturbed they felt, they were told something amazing. The discomfort they felt was a sign of genuine belief. Why? Because they did not want those thoughts. They did not welcome them. They did not agree with them. They were upset because those thoughts were the opposite of who they truly were. This is the key. A whisper that enters your mind is not your identity. A thought that scares you is not a reflection of your heart. A feeling that bothers you is not a sign of weak faith. It is actually a sign that your heart is healthy enough to reject what does not belong in it. Imagine someone knocking on your door late at night. You don't open the door just because they knocked. In the same way, you are not responsible for every thought that knocks on the door of your mind. You are responsible for what you allow inside. And the fact that you reject those thoughts, even silently, is a sign of spiritual strength. So take a deep breath and stop punishing yourself. Do not fear your thoughts. They are not stronger than the Almighty's protection. Do not judge your heart. It is doing exactly what a believer's heart should do. And do not mistake whispers for weakness. The harder Shaytan tries to disturb you, the more it means he sees your light, your sincerity, and your effort. Your heart is not weak. Your faith is not failing. You are not drifting away. You are simply experiencing the noise of a whisper that has no power over you. The Almighty sees your struggle, and He knows that your discomfort is actually proof of your commitment to Him. That alone makes you stronger than you realize. 3. The Almighty protects you the moment you ask Him for help. Many people underestimate how quickly the Almighty responds when the heart turns to Him. We sometimes imagine that we need long prayers, complicated routines, or long hours of worship before we can feel protected or calm again. But the truth is far simpler and far more beautiful. The moment you ask the Almighty for help, even with a few sincere words, His protection begins instantly. Shaitan wants you to believe that you are alone with your thoughts. He wants you to feel trapped. He wants you to think that the whispers in your mind are stronger than your faith, but they are not. The moment you turn to your Lord, even with a whisper of your own, Shaitan loses his strength, because your heart at that moment is no longer facing him. It is facing the one who created, controls, and protects everything in existence. You don't need to shout. You don't need to memorize a long prayer. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to take a small moment, a second of honesty, and say from your heart, "My Lord, protect me from these thoughts. I don't want them. I don't accept them. Help me." That single moment of turning to Him is so powerful that Shaitan is forced to withdraw. He cannot stay where the remembrance of the Almighty enters. He cannot whisper when your heart calls out for divine help. Darkness cannot remain in a place where light has been switched on. Think of a child frightened by a shadow. The moment they call their parent, the shadow loses its power. Not because the shadow disappeared instantly, but because the child now knows they are not alone. In the same way, the moment you seek the Almighty's protection from your negative thoughts, you feel relief because your heart knows something powerful. You are no longer facing the whisper alone. The Almighty is with you, and His protection is far stronger than any whisper. Even if your thoughts feel overwhelming, the Almighty hears the smallest call for help. Even if you feel too tired to speak, He hears the prayer in your heart. Even if you feel too ashamed to describe your thoughts, He already knows them, and He still offers you protection. You do not need to hide anything from Him. You do not need to fear going to Him. He is the one who understands your struggles better than anyone else ever could. And this is the beauty of His protection. You don't have to solve the problem yourself. You don't have to battle your thoughts. You don't have to pretend to be strong every minute. He knows your weakness and still responds. He knows your fear and still comforts you. He knows the whisper and still guides you through it. When you call upon Him, you are not just asking for help. You are stepping into a shield that surrounds your mind, calms your heart, and silences the whisper. A shield that blocks negativity and fills your inner world with peace. A shield that reminds you that you are protected, valued, and watched over by the one who never abandons His servants. So next time your mind feels under attack, don't panic and don't blame yourself. Just turn to the Almighty, even for a moment, and say, "My Lord, I need you." That one sentence spoken sincerely is stronger than every whisper combined. Shaytan fears believers who know how to call upon the Almighty, because he knows that the moment you do, he loses control completely. Remember this always. Your strength does not come from fighting the whisper alone. It comes from calling the Almighty to fight it with you. And when he protects you, nothing can overpower you. 4. Shaitan pushes you into fear. The Almighty pulls you into trust. One of the main strategies Shaitan uses against you is fear. Not fear of real danger, but fear of things that exist only in your imagination. He whispers thoughts that make you worry about the future, doubt your abilities, question your decisions, and expect the worst outcomes. He tries to fill your mind with what if after what if, until your heart becomes heavy and your confidence disappears. He wants you to believe that something terrible is coming, even when there is no evidence of it at all. Shaitan knows that if he can make you afraid, he can make you forget who is truly in control. He wants you to panic so your mind becomes weaker. He wants you to imagine scenarios that will never happen. He wants you to lose sleep thinking about things that may not even exist. He wants you to fear the future so much that you stop living your present. But what he really wants most is to make you forget that the Almighty has already written your path and is already protecting you in ways you cannot see. Fear is one of his most powerful tricks because it enters quietly. You don't even realize it at first. It starts with a small worry, then grows into a disturbing thought, then becomes a heavy feeling in your chest. Before you know it, you feel anxious without knowing why. That is exactly what Shaitan wants, to see you shaken, confused, and unsure. But fear built on whispers is nothing but an illusion, and illusions disappear the moment the truth enters. The Almighty does not want you to live in fear. He teaches you trust. He teaches you calmness. He teaches you that the future is already taken care of. He reminds you that nothing, absolutely nothing, can harm you unless He allows it, and nothing meant for you can ever miss you. Trust is the opposite of fear, and this is why Shaitan tries to weaken it, because when you trust the Almighty fully, you become unreachable. Your heart becomes strong. Your mind becomes stable. Your soul becomes peaceful. Shaitan cannot control a person whose trust is firm. Trusting the Almighty does not mean you will never feel afraid. It means you will not let fear decide your life. It means you understand that even if you do not know what will happen tomorrow, you know who controls tomorrow. You may not know what the next chapter of your life holds, but you know who the author is. And when you trust the author, you stop fearing the unknown. Think about your past. How many times were you afraid of something that never happened? How many nights did you worry about situations that solved themselves? How many times did you feel lost, only for the Almighty to open a door you didn't expect? How many things in your life eventually worked out in ways that made you say, I didn't know this would turn into something good? Those moments are reminders that the Almighty never abandons you. Even when you were scared, He was guiding you. Even when you were confused, He was protecting you. Even when you felt alone, He was carrying you through. Shaitan wants you to forget those moments so you can panic again. But the Almighty wants you to remember them so you can trust again. Whenever fear enters your mind, slow down and remind yourself, my future is not in the hands of Shaitan. My future is not controlled by fear. My future is written by the Almighty. This simple truth lifts the weight off your chest. Fear begins to fade, trust begins to rise, and your heart becomes calm again, not because the situation changed instantly, but because your belief did. The Almighty is in control, not fear, not whispers, not Shaitan. Trust brings peace. Trust brings clarity. Trust brings strength. And when you lean on the Almighty with trust, Shaitan's whispers become irrelevant. They lose their power. They fade like smoke in a strong wind. So the next time Shaitan tries to scare you about your future, stop and remind yourself that the one who brought you this far will not leave you now. Trust Him. Let Him guide you. Let Him carry your worries. When you walk with the Almighty, you do not walk with fear. 5. Your prayer protects your mind, even if you feel distracted. One of the most common worries people have is this: why do I get the worst thoughts when I am praying? Why do I feel so distracted when I am trying to connect with the Almighty? And many people feel guilty, discouraged, or even scared because they think these thoughts mean their prayer is not accepted or that their faith is weak. But the truth is completely different and far more comforting than you realize. Shaytan hates your prayer more than anything else you do. He hates seeing you bow. He hates seeing you humble yourself. He hates seeing you disconnect from the world and connect with your Creator. So naturally, he will try his hardest to disturb you at the moment you are trying to get closer to the Almighty. It is not a sign of weak faith. It is a sign that your prayer is powerful because Shaytan is fighting it. Think about it. You do not get these disturbing whispers when you are wasting time. You do not get these whispers when you are mindlessly scrolling on your phone. You do not get these whispers when you are doing something sinful or unimportant. You get them in prayer. That alone tells you something important. Shaitan is targeting the moment that brings you closest to the Almighty. Now here is something even more beautiful. Your prayer still counts even if your mind feels messy. The Almighty does not expect you to be perfect. He does not expect every second of focus. He does not expect you to pray like an angel. He only expects you to keep trying. Every time your mind wanders and you gently bring it back, you are being rewarded. Every time a whisper distracts you, but you continue praying, you are defeating Shaitan. And every time you feel overwhelmed, but choose to finish your prayer, you are proving your sincerity. Your prayer is cleaning your mind even if you feel distracted. A person who takes a shower is still being cleansed even if they are thinking about other things. In the same way, prayer washes your heart even when your thoughts are not fully in your control. The Almighty sees your effort. He sees your intention. He sees the battle happening inside your mind. And He rewards you even more when you fight through those whispers and continue praying. Prayer is not just an action, it is a protection. It builds a shield around your heart. It strengthens your mind. It brings calmness into your soul. You may not feel it instantly, but over time it shapes you, heals you, and stabilizes you in ways you cannot imagine. Sometimes you feel the peace after the prayer. Sometimes you feel it hours later. Sometimes you only realize the benefit months down the road. But the protection is always happening. The problem is not your distraction. The problem is believing that your distraction makes your prayer invalid. It does not. The Almighty loves the fact that you are trying. He loves the fact that you continue even when your mind is fighting you. He loves the fact that you show up despite your struggles. That sincerity is more valuable than a perfectly focused prayer from someone who feels no inner battle. So the next time your mind is flooded with thoughts during prayer, do not panic. Do not feel guilty. Do not think the Almighty is rejecting you. Instead, remind yourself gently, I am praying for Him, I am trying for Him, and He sees every part of my struggle. Continue your prayer. Breathe, refocus. Even if you have to refocus 100 times, each time brings you closer to the Almighty.